The massive council chamber aboard the Zintar spire glowed with the cold light of distant stars. Its ceiling stretched so high it disappeared into darkness, and beneath it, thousands of alien representatives watched in silence. Each species came from a world of claws, scales, or steel, but all shared one thought. They were staring at something strange, something dangerous. In the center of the hall stood Commander Elias Ward, the only human present. His uniform was scorched, torn at the shoulder where plasma fire had once seared through. A pale scar ran from his cheek to his jaw, a mark of too many wars. Yet he stood tall, arms at his sides, calm as stone, while a sea of alien eyes examined him like a creature in a cage. The head of the Dominion Council, Admiral Arthex, rose from his seat. His tall frame shimmered with a glassy exoskeleton that clicked softly as he moved. His mandibles twitched with both curiosity and disdain. His voice, when he spoke, was sharp and cold. "Human," he said, his words echoing across the chamber. "Your species claims to rule your world. Yet we have studied your Earth. Its oceans, jungles, deserts, mountains. We have seen beasts of power and fury. There are creatures faster than you, stronger than you, larger than you. Tell us, then, what is the apex predator of your planet?" The question hung in the air like a blade. Some of the delegates chuckled. Others hissed in mock amusement. What could this fragile, soft-skinned creature possibly say? Elias didn't answer immediately. He lifted his gaze, meeting the alien's gleaming eyes without fear. Then slowly he smiled. A quiet, knowing smile that made the laughter fade. He placed his hand over his chest just above his heart. His voice was steady, low, almost gentle. "The apex predator," he said, "is right here." For a moment no one spoke. The silence deepened, broken only by the faint hum of the station's engines. Confused murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some aliens clicked in disbelief. Others exchanged looks of annoyance, thinking the human was arrogant or mad. One reptilian envoy let out a harsh laugh. "You," it sneered. "You are weak. Flesh without claws, eyes that see only daylight. Even your world nearly killed you. What makes you believe you are predator, not prey?" Elias didn't move. His eyes were calm, but inside them burned something fierce and ancient. "Because," he said softly, "we learned to hunt everything that tried to kill us. We learned to fight the cold, the heat, the hunger. We built fire when the dark wanted us dead. We made weapons when teeth weren't enough. We faced extinction 100 times and we're still here." His words were simple, but his tone carried the weight of history, of blood, of survival itself. Before the aliens could reply, a shrill alarm cut through the air. Red warning lights flashed across the chamber. Voices shouted in confusion as screens came alive with incoming data. A Dominion officer rushed to the Admiral's side, his face pale under the flickering lights. "Sir," he stammered, "multiple warp signatures, unknown configuration, approaching fast." The chamber erupted in panic. Outside, through the great windows, streaks of light tore into view as a human fleet dropped out of warp space. The ships were battered, scarred from battle, built from mismatched metal, but they came armed and ready. They had come for war. Elias watched the display unfold. Around him, the council shouted orders, their calm shattered by fear. He didn't speak. He only straightened his torn uniform, that faint smile still on his face. Then he turned toward the Admiral. "You wanted to know what a predator looks like," he said quietly. "Now you'll see." The first human missiles struck moments later, lighting the void with fire. And in that instant, as the station shook and alarms wailed, the galaxy began to understand what the man's smile had truly meant. The war began with fire raining from the heavens. Over the dark skies of Cirellan Prime, the jewel world of the Zintar Dominion, the calm of night shattered as streaks of plasma cut across the atmosphere like burning comets. Cities that had stood for centuries trembled under the force of the bombardment. The Dominion fleet scrambled to respond, but the enemy that appeared out of warp space was unlike anything they expected. Human ships, small and crude, their hulls scarred by ancient battles, their engines roaring with desperate fury. They were ugly things, built for survival, not beauty. Yet in their design was something raw and terrifying: purpose. The humans had come not as conquerors, but as survivors who refused to die. 2 centuries earlier, when the Zintar had first reached Earth, humanity was still divided, its nations quarreling over land, power, and pride. The Dominion came in peace, or so they said, and when the humans resisted their rule, the skies of Earth burned. Billions were enslaved, their cities turned into factories feeding the Dominion's endless war machine. For decades, the Xintar believed humanity broken, but they misunderstood something vital. When humans were pushed to the edge, they changed. They adapted. They learned. Hidden in the ruins, they studied their enemies' weapons, stole their ships, rewired their technology, and made it their own. The day the humans rose, the war turned. And now, 200 years later, they had returned to the stars to finish what their ancestors had started. Captain Mara Singh stood on the bridge of the frigate Ironwind, her dark eyes fixed on the chaos outside. Her ship shook as plasma fire scraped past its shields, lighting the deck in flashes of blue. "Lock railguns," she shouted, her voice calm but fierce. "Target their command cores, don't let them regroup." Around her, the crew moved in perfect rhythm, each one focused, each one fighting like they had nothing left to lose. Missiles screamed into the void, railguns thundered, and the Dominion ship shuddered under the relentless human assault. Every explosion felt personal, every shot a message. Humanity was not prey. The Dominion's commanders struggled to understand how these fragile creatures could fight with such precision. The Xintar were larger, stronger, and outnumbered the humans 5-1. Yet the humans didn't retreat, didn't falter. They fought like cornered wolves tearing into the heart of the Dominion fleet. Their ships darted between enemy formations, exploiting weaknesses with ruthless instinct. When one vessel fell, two more took its place. When a ship's engines failed, it rammed the nearest enemy, turning itself into a weapon even in death. The stars themselves seemed to burn brighter with their defiance. From orbit, the surface of Cirelon Prime glowed red as bombardments continued. Human Marines descended in drop pods through walls of fire, their armor scorched as they landed in the middle of alien strongholds. The Dominion soldiers, towering insectoid creatures with claws sharp as blades, found themselves outmatched not in strength, but in will. Humans fought with no fear of death, driven by a fury born from centuries of pain. Every fallen comrade was a spark that lit another blaze. They used the terrain, the shadows, and even the Dominion's own technology against them. Within hours, the once proud cities of Cirelon Prime were ruins. The Dominion, once sure of its power, faced something it had never truly seen before, a species that refused to kneel no matter the cost. Across the galaxy, reports spread like wildfire. Earth's lost children had returned, and they were fighting with the fire of 1,000 suns. For the first time, the Dominion felt fear. As the Ironwind pulled away from the burning world, Mara Singh looked out the viewport, watching the clouds of smoke rise into the stars. "They thought we were weak," she murmured. "They were wrong." Her voice was quiet, but her eyes burned with the same light that had once guided the human race through every dark age. Behind her, the engines roared to life, carrying the fleet toward the next battle, toward the next challenge. Humanity had no empire, no home, and no mercy left to give. They had only their will, and that was enough. The galaxy would remember the day the humans came, not as slaves or victims, but as predators unleashed. The corridors of the Dominion dreadnought were long, narrow, and alive with a cold blue light that pulsed through the walls like veins. The air smelled of metal and oil, heavy with the hum of alien machinery. Commander Elias Ward moved silently through the darkness, his boots touching the floor with deadly precision. Behind him, his team of 8 soldiers followed, their black armor blending into the shadows. They were deep inside enemy territory, miles away from their fleet, surrounded by thousands of hostile soldiers. But Elias's voice in their comms was calm, steady, and filled with a dangerous confidence. "Remember," he said quietly, "they think we're animals. Let's show them what kind of animals we really are." The humans had boarded the dreadnought after a brutal battle in orbit. The Dominion ship was massive, a fortress in space protected by layers of armor and swarms of fighters. But the humans had found a way in, a narrow maintenance bay unguarded because the Xintar never imagined anyone would dare breach it. The boarding pods had slammed into the hull like bullets, cutting through steel with molten edges, and out came the predators. Now inside the heart of the enemy, the hunters moved. Elias's team advanced down a hallway lined with glowing control panels. Ahead, a group of Xintar guards turned the corner, towering creatures with chitinous armor and blade-like arms. The humans didn't hesitate. Gunfire erupted in the dark, silent but deadly, as shock rounds pierced alien exoskeletons. One soldier, Ruiz, lunged forward, slicing through an enemy's throat with a vibroblade. Another dropped a flash charge that filled the corridor with blinding white light. When it faded, the aliens were gone. Only silence and drifting smoke remained. The Zintar were powerful in open combat, their size and claws unmatched. But humans didn't fight fair. They used tactics born from thousands of years of war, ambushes, traps, and chaos. They adapted to every enemy, every weakness. They weren't stronger or faster. They were smarter, meaner, and impossible to predict. Every corner of the dreadnought became a battlefield. Every door a potential trap. Elias led his soldiers with precise movements, his eyes sharp, his mind constantly working. The team pushed deeper toward the ship's control core, the central reactor that powered the Dominion's flagship fleet. Destroying it would cripple their enemy's command structure, a blow they might never recover from. As they approached the reactor chamber, the air grew hotter. Blue light flickered from the enormous energy core, contained by a cage of spinning rings and plasma conduits. Dozens of Zintar guards stood between them and the target. Elias raised his hand, signaling his team to hold. For a moment, the silence stretched, broken only by the hum of the reactor. Then he gave the order. Now! Grenades flew through the air, exploding in bursts of fire and sound. The humans charged in, their weapons roaring. The fight was fast and brutal. The aliens' claws slashed through armor, but the humans kept moving, driven by something primal. Elias fought like a man possessed, his blade flashing as he struck down enemies twice his size. He felt the sting of claws, the heat of plasma, but he didn't stop. Pain didn't matter. Only the mission did. When the last alien fell, bleeding and broken, he staggered to the control panel, tore off his gloves, and set the charge himself. The countdown began. The team retreated, running through smoke and fire as alarms screamed. One by one, escape pods launched into the void. As Elias's pod tore free from the doomed dreadnought, he looked back through the viewport. The massive ship glowed from within, and then, silence, light, and an explosion that tore the stars apart. The dreadnought was gone. As the shockwave faded, Elias sat back, breathing hard. The reflection of the explosion danced in his visor. Predators, he whispered almost to himself. That's what we are. Far behind him, the wreckage of the dreadnought burned, a graveyard of steel and pride. The humans had taken one more step toward vengeance, and the galaxy had begun to see the truth. When a human hunts, nothing survives. The stars above Earth burned red as the Dominion returned with vengeance. Their fleet stretched across the void like a storm of black fire, blotting out the light of the sun. Humanity, once triumphant and fierce, now stood on the edge of extinction. Every planet that flew the Terran flag was under siege. Mars was the first to fall, its colonies wiped out in a single day. The moon followed soon after, shattered by orbital bombardment. The skies of Earth filled with smoke as entire cities vanished beneath the fury of plasma storms. Yet in the middle of this endless destruction, humanity refused to surrender. Even as their worlds burned, their spirit burned brighter. Captain Mara Singh stood on the bridge of the Iron Wind, her face lit by the glow of distant explosions. The ship's hull was cracked, its shields flickering, but her voice was steady as she gave orders. Around her, the crew worked in silence, exhaustion etched into their faces. They had fought for days without rest, surrounded on all sides, but they never lost focus. Beyond the viewport, Earth hung in the distance, a blue and wounded world, its oceans reflecting the fires of war. Mara's chest tightened as she looked at it. That was home. That was everything they were fighting for. High above the planet, the last human stronghold floated like a bleeding heart. Fort Ares, an orbital station built from the remains of 1,000 old ships. It was the final line of defense, the last refuge of humankind. When the Dominion demanded their surrender, a single transmission went out from the station. "We are the children of Earth," the voice declared. "You can burn our world, but you cannot erase our will." Those words spread across human comms, becoming a battle cry that reached even the darkest corners of the fleet. The Dominion's grand fleet closed in, their numbers uncountable. Each ship was massive, armed with weapons capable of tearing apart moons. Against them stood a handful of human vessels, battered frigates, damaged cruisers, even civilian ships armed with scavenged guns. They were outmatched in every possible way, but humans didn't fight by the rules of numbers. They fought with everything they had, with every ounce of rage and desperation in their hearts. When the order came, the human fleet launched. The battle that followed was chaos. The void was filled with blinding light, the roar of engines and the screams of dying ships. Human fighters darted between the Dominion cruisers like sparks from a fire, moving too fast and too unpredictably for enemy targeting systems to track. They used the wreckage of fallen ships as cover, turning debris into shields. They overloaded engines, faked signal pings, and baited enemy vessels into colliding. Every trick, every desperate maneuver was used. It wasn't strategy, it was survival. The Iron Wind took hit after hit, pieces of its hull burning away. Mara's voice never shook as she shouted commands even when the deck trembled beneath her feet. "Keep firing," she yelled. "If we fall forward." Her crew obeyed without hesitation. When the enemy flagship, the Vorax Pride, loomed before them, its guns blazing, Mara made her final decision. She turned to her pilot, eyes cold but fierce. "Set a course for their reactor. Maximum speed." The pilot hesitated for only a second, then nodded. The Iron Wind accelerated, engines screaming, fire trailing behind it as it rammed the Dominion flagship. The impact split the void apart. The explosion that followed was brighter than the sun, a wave of destruction that tore through the Dominion's command ships and crippled half their fleet. The shockwave rippled across the system, scattering enemy vessels in panic. Fort Ares, though half destroyed, remained standing. The message was clear. Humans might fall, but they would always take their enemies with them. When the smoke cleared, Earth was in ruins. Billions were gone. The oceans boiled. The skies blackened, but the survivors didn't weep. From the ashes, emergency beacons flickered to life. Across the radio waves came the same voice that had defied the Dominion before. "We are still here," it said. "We endure." The Sol system burned that day, but so long as one human heart still beat, the fight was far from over. Elias Ward drifted in the silence of space, surrounded by the wreckage of war. The Sol system was gone, its planets cracked, its people scattered across the stars. His escape pod floated among shattered metal and the frozen bodies of fallen soldiers. For days he was alone, kept alive by failing oxygen reserves and sheer stubborn will. When the signal finally came, a faint human voice through the static, he thought it was a dream. "This is the Ghost Fleet," the voice said. "If you can hear this, you're not done fighting yet." That was how humanity's vengeance began again. Not with armies, not with governments, but with survivors too angry to die. The Ghost Fleet was made up of outlaws, soldiers, and scavengers, humans who had escaped the fall of Sul and refused to surrender. They lived in the shadows between stars, hiding among asteroid belts, repairing old ships, and gathering what remained of human strength. Their vessels were mismatched and scarred, patched together with parts stolen from Dominion wrecks. To the rest of the galaxy, they were ghosts, rumors of burning ships that struck in the night and vanished before anyone could track them. Elias, now captain of the warship Nemesis, became their leader. His voice, calm and sharp as ever, became the heartbeat of the fleet. "We are not prey," he told them. "We are evolution's answer. We hunt the ones who thought they owned us." For 5 long years, the Ghost Fleet struck fear across the galaxy. They didn't fight head-on. They hunted. Dominion convoys disappeared into empty space. War factories exploded without warning. Entire fleets were found drifting, their systems dead, their crews gone. The Zintar Dominion began to whisper about the Earthborn plague. Humans who came from nowhere, who killed without being seen, who left messages burned into the hulls of their ships. "Remember Earth." The Dominion tried to chase them, but the humans always stayed one step ahead. They moved like shadows, striking from the dark, adapting faster than their enemies could understand. For every human the Dominion killed, 10 more seemed to rise in their place. Elias's plan was more than revenge. It was extinction. He had learned something in the fall of Sol, that the only way humanity could survive was by ensuring their enemies never rose again. So he led the fleet to the Dominion's core worlds, where the alien empire was strongest. Their final target was Zinkara, the Dominion's homeworld, a planet covered in black oceans and towers of living metal. Thousands of ships guarded it, an armada so vast it blocked the light from its sun. Against them, the Ghost Fleet brought less than 100 ships, but they had something far deadlier than numbers, a weapon built from both human rage and alien genius. During the years in hiding, Elias had stolen a secret from the Dominion, a war AI so powerful it could command fleets, rewrite systems, and think faster than any living mind. The humans had fused it with human neural code, creating something unstable and unpredictable. They called it Nemesis, named after Elias's ship and the idea of divine vengeance. It was a weapon no one could control, not even its creators, but Elias didn't need control. He needed chaos. When the final battle began, Nemesis was unleashed. It spread through Dominion systems like wildfire, infecting ships, turning their weapons against each other. The sky above Zinkara erupted as entire fleets imploded, their power cores tearing themselves apart. Elias watched from the command deck, his face expressionless as Dominion ships tore each other to pieces. Through every open channel, he broadcast one message across the stars. You wanted to know what Earth's apex predator was? Watch. The words echoed across the void, reaching every world, every species that had once laughed at humanity. What they saw next silenced them forever. The fall of an empire, undone by the very prey it had created. As the Dominion burned, the Ghost Fleet vanished once more, leaving behind only wreckage and whispers. The Zintar Dominion was gone, erased from the stars, its name now a warning in every corner of the galaxy. The humans had become legend, hunters in the dark, feared and unseen, and at the center of it all stood Elias Ward, his eyes reflecting the fire of dying worlds. The universe had finally learned the truth. The most dangerous predator in existence wasn't born with claws or fangs. It was born with a will that refused to break. When the war finally ended, the stars were quiet again. The Zintar Dominion was gone, their homeworld shattered, their fleets nothing more than drifting ruins. The war that had burned across the galaxy for decades had ended not with peace treaties or parades, but with silence. The silence of extinction. Humanity had won, but the cost was unimaginable. Earth was dead, its surface cracked and blackened. The oceans had boiled away, and the air was poison. The cradle of humankind had become a tomb. Yet even in ruin, humanity refused to fade. The survivors, scattered across hundreds of colonies, came together once more. They built new homes on alien worlds, carrying the ashes of their planet and the fire of their spirit wherever they went. Out of destruction, a new kind of humanity was born, harder, wiser, and unbreakable. Commander Elias Ward lived long enough to see it. His hair had turned gray, and the scars on his face told stories no one else could understand. He had fought through the worst war the galaxy had ever known, and now, in his final years, he lived on one of the new frontier worlds, a small, green planet orbiting a quiet sun. The people there didn't build monuments or statues of him. They didn't need to. His name was already written into the stars, whispered in every corner of the galaxy as a symbol of what humanity could do when pushed too far. One day, a young alien historian arrived to interview him. She was small and gentle, her species known for curiosity rather than war. Her translator device flickered as she spoke, her voice filled with respect. "Commander Ward," she began, "you led the war that changed the galaxy. You destroyed an empire that had ruled for 1,000 years, but so many died. Was it worth it?" Elias didn't answer right away. He looked out the window of his cabin at the sky, where twin moons hung low above a forest of silver trees. His eyes reflected both pain and peace. "Was it worth it?" he repeated softly. "That depends on what you think survival is worth. We didn't fight for power or revenge. We fought because they left us no choice." The alien tilted her head, confused. "Your people became something different. Even now, the galaxy fears humans. They say you became what you hated most. Predators, destroyers." Elias turned his gaze toward her, a small smile playing on his lips. "We didn't become predators," he said quietly. "We always were. We just forgot for a while." His words hung in the air, heavy and true. The alien seemed unsettled, unsure how to respond. "And when someone asks you again," she said carefully, "who is Earth's apex predator?" Elias's smile grew, slow and knowing. He tapped his chest with one worn hand. "Still right here." His voice was calm, almost gentle, but the power behind it was unmistakable. He wasn't boasting. He was telling the truth of a species that had crawled out of the dirt, faced extinction, and still endured. The alien sat in silence for a long time, her thoughts spinning. She finally whispered, "The galaxy still fears your kind." Elias chuckled softly, though there was no cruelty in it. "Good," he said. "It means they remember." As the evening light faded, Elias stepped outside, walking to the edge of the forest. He looked up at the stars, the same stars he had once fought beneath, the same endless void that had witnessed humanity's rise from prey to predator. Somewhere out there, Ships bearing the flag of the new Terran Union patrolled the edges of known space. Humanity had not stopped exploring, not stopped fighting, not stopped dreaming. The galaxy was vast, full of dangers yet to come, but humans were no longer afraid. They had learned that survival wasn't about being the strongest or the smartest. It was about never giving up, no matter the odds. As night fell, Elias sat on a rock and watched the stars until his eyes grew heavy. The last thing he saw was the reflection of starlight in the distance, bright, sharp, and alive, like the eyes of a hunter watching from the dark. Somewhere in that infinite sky, the predators waited for their next fight, and for the first time in a long while, Elias smiled, knowing that humanity would be ready. The galaxy had forgotten many things over the ages, but it would never forget this one truth. The apex predator of Earth was not extinct, it was eternal.